קובי, אתה יכול להעלות את המסך?
I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to speak to you today, and I'm very thankful for being invited to this conference. I regret that I can't address you in Hebrew, so I hope you will tolerate an American who suffers from the disease of monolinguism. Today I'd like to talk about advanced recovery as a resilience strategy. Avi has talked about the significance of resilience, and the idea of advanced recovery may sound a bit counterintuitive. The ideas that I present today are the result of a collaboration with two Harvard colleagues, Dutch Leonard and Doug Allers, and they certainly are here in spirit. The issue that I want to address is how we can have in place, before a crisis arrives, those things that will help us speed recovery. And the idea of advanced recovery, which I'll talk about, should be part of any risk management framework, a comprehensive preparedness for events and for the recovery from those events. So we can think about 5 leverage points for reducing the social loss that occurs from disasters. As you can see from this diagram, the most common that we think of after the event occurs is emergency response and a very expensive process of recovery that occurs afterwards. And we're also familiar with some of the pre-event activities that we carry on. First of all, prevention and mitigation. Can we stop the disaster from happening, or can we take steps that will reduce the impact of that disaster, even if we can't avoid the occurrence of it? We also are very familiar with preparing for response. All sorts of things, such as the previous speaker from the National Disaster Management Authority mentioned. But I'd like to speak about the idea of things that we can do in advance that will make recovery faster, less expensive, or more effective than it would otherwise be. And as I said, this may seem counterintuitive in the sense that we don't really know what a disaster is going to be ahead of time. We don't know where it will strike. We don't know when it will strike. And therefore, it may be tough to think about ways that we can deal with it ahead of the time. And I don't want what I'm going to be speaking about to be confused with prevention or mitigation activities, or to think of these as necessarily extremely expensive measures that would require huge investments by all sectors of society in all places to be ready for events which might never occur. So the idea of advanced recovery is to look for ways that we can make the disaster easier to respond to and speed the recovery. My research group has been working with the city of San Francisco, which faces an extremely high risk, more than 97%, of a catastrophic earthquake occurring in the next 30 years. So their minds are focused on the possibility, the strong possibility, that they will face another event like the horrible earthquake in 1906. And they have been developing plans that I think, in some sense, can provide a framework, if not a detailed plan, for some of the things that might need to be done in preparing for the damage to the electricity grid or the other critical infrastructure we've been talking about. So their measures start with communication strategies, recognizing that communicating with the public, even in the absence of some of our normal communication systems, will be crucial. that this has to cut across sectors of society, across levels of government in the United States. And secondly, recognizing that at a time when the city's fortunes will be at a very low level, they also need a way of showing that the city can come back, that they'll be able to communicate to the outside world that recovery is on the way. A second kind of measure that they're taking are finance strategies. At a time when they have large needs for investment in infrastructure and other things that have been damaged, they recognize that their tax resources will have declined or disappeared, and therefore they are getting ready to take the city's story on the road to persuade sources of financing that they will have the means in the future to repay loans, and also arranging in advance for survivable measures that will allow them to access credit even at a time when their situation has been severely damaged. There are a number of planning strategies that they're adopting, using the regular budget process and the normal planning activities for disaster as a way of building in options for recovery. They're realizing that in the aftermath of a catastrophic disaster, they're likely to change the structure of the local government. They will be putting a lot more emphasis on development activities, physical planning and activities, and therefore they're likely to have to alter the administrative structure and organization chart of the city, all of which can be thought about in advance, planned, and perhaps contingent legislative authority put into place. And similarly, the budget of the city will be altered significantly, and they can also do some of that up front and perhaps seek legislative authority for making emergency changes in their budgeting processes, so that in the aftermath of a disaster, they won't have to spend months arguing about what the form of their government should be or what the nature of the budgeting changes should be. Similarly, they're thinking about the regulatory policies that might be involved for issuing building permits, for environmental regulations, and a host of other things that will be involved, for purchasing, construction inspections. Both the volume of these activities is likely to grow exponentially during a rebuilding process after an earthquake, and the nature of the reviews is likely to change as well. And therefore, these are things that they can think through in advance, think about how to provide surge capacity for regulatory activity, and be able to have expedited procedures for the normal reviews. Many relationships will have to be developed as well, outside of the city of San Francisco, across levels of government, among the public and private sectors. And finally, at the community level, they will need to have organization that can reach down to the neighborhood level of society. And the city is working to develop some of that leadership in advance, to work with leaders who have sprung up, and to use some of the events that occur in the normal course of life to build awareness about hazards and high risks. Finally, they're thinking about an infrastructure for supporting communications and coordination among the many neighborhood groups that are likely to be involved in this. So as we look back at the framework and think about the things that we're doing to get ready for the possibility of serious damage to our critical infrastructures, as we think both about prevention and mitigation on the one hand, emergency response, it would be wise as well to think about measures that we can take today that will make it much easier for us to launch and carry out the recovery that will have to come after one of these horrible events. Thank you.
Thank you.